there's been a ton of stuff going on in the past month, so I actually got quite a few slides. I still didn't even get to write up everything I wanted to, so you'll see how we go. Let's just get straight into it. So the usual MicroPython links and the sponsor of MicroPython, please go look at those and share if you can. I'll be talking about just general news, and Damien's going to be talking about the MP Remote tool, which had a new version updated today, I think.
Yep.
Yay, that's cool. Firstly, we'll start with the season of docs. Last month we were talking a little bit about what was coming up, but this month I'm excited to say we've actually got someone signed up. So Nitty Cow, who's a third-year engineering student, has come on board to help us, particularly with the port documentation. So she'll be with us until October. She's already made a couple of updates, and Jim and I are meeting with her once a week to sort of guide her as to what we want. And we're going to start with the Raspberry Pi Pico documentation, but at some point we're looking to consolidate some of the port documentation, which is quite a big job. Anyway, if you see her around, say hi. The segment known as Matt's New Hardware, starting with the Heltec Node 151. Kind of an old chipset. It's a Cortex M3, but it's got LoRa on board, and they're cheap. They're about $20 odd. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a sec. More hardware. We've got the TiTiva series. I can't remember the exact micro here, but I wasn't even really aware of this, but TI have been selling this for a little while. Pretty, almost looks standard, and then you dig a little deeper, and it's actually got quite a few peripherals. It's reasonably priced. It's got some interesting stuff like a really high-speed ADC, up to 8 UARTs on board. So yeah, it's an interesting chipset, and I'll also talk about that in a little bit. Finally, something interesting to talk about is the Stlink V3 Mini, and we found this by accident last MicroPython Meetup. Andrew actually stumbled on this, Andrew Leach, who's unfortunately away sick today, not COVID, I'm led to believe. So the interesting thing about this is it's one of ST's new ways to like the new programmer and debugger boards. So usually these have been a bigger device, but this is really small, really neat. Also designed to be soldered down to a board, so it's castellated, so you can put on your own designs if you want to have an integrated debugger. The part that we found interesting was that it's an ST F7 micro on there. Now you can buy these things for about $15. The STM32 F7 is about $15 as a one-off part. So what we're hoping to do is make this little MicroPython board, so we can reprogram it, custom GPIO, and perhaps possibly use it as a programmer, but actually just have it as a regular development board as well. So, but it's got half a mega flash, 256K of RAM. The thing's a beast for $15. I don't know if you've got MicroPython running on it yet.
Not yet.
That's it. Just a matter of time. Porting effort. Peter Ray over there. Peter's raised, I think it was 10 PRs, yeah? I counted 10 today. With some help from Mike, who's online, I think. Mike, thanks for chipping in with that.
Thanks, Mike.
So we've now got, it's focusing, like these particular PRs are focusing on getting pin support for the SAMD. The reason there's 10 is because I think there's 8 boards, if I can. 7 boards. So they're sort of targeting all the different pin configuration and flat flash configuration. So thank you for submitting that. We'll review them shortly. It's kind of exciting. I mentioned the Heltec 151. I've been helping a gentleman by the name of John Marconi. I talked about him last month to get the port for this particular STM32 family. We haven't had L1 support before, which is the Cortex M3. It's a bit of an older chipset, and the API that STM provides is a little bit dated in places, so it's proving a little bit challenging. But we do have a REPL working. Certain things we get relatively for free because of all the good work Damien's done. But some things like the USB over, the serial over USB is still not working. We've got a few things to figure out, but that is coming along. The TiTiva series I mentioned before, the reason I bought a couple of these is because there's a port out on the internet. It's been out there for a little while, for a couple of months, which does look quite feature rich. They've got pin support, SPI, UART, a whole bunch of stuff. So I want to give that a try. So fingers crossed, I think Ollie, we're going to try that one tonight. Sorry, Real Sparky, if you're out there. I haven't had a chance to dig into the G4 series, which is the newish STM32 board. I will try to get that tested this month. For those that weren't here recent months, the gentleman name is Real Sparky, has put together a port. And it's pretty full featured port for the G474, which is going to be a really popular port. I think it's a really popular chipset. And there's the Artemis port, which we've also got to try with a couple of form factors. Oliver and I tried to get this running last month. Failed. Got something deployed to it, but it wasn't running. So again, there was a minimal port that we found online. We're going to try and get running. So these boards are really quite interesting to me. So a little bit more time into that. So a few boards that we're trying to get running. CircuitPython news. We talked about this last couple of months actually. Merging in some of the MicroPython code base because they were based on 1.9.3 and a bit. And I think they're now, if they're not running at 1.15, they're also close to merge requests again that they've made. So, well, the good news about this is that MicroPython and CircuitPython will have the same or a similar baseline for the language side of things. So hopefully we can share more. So I believe you've spoken to Scott about what you might be able to do.
Yeah. Yeah, baby steps.
Baby steps. Yeah, but it's a good step because it made it very difficult fixing something in either MicroPython or CircuitPython. Now we've got a chance to do them both. While we're on CircuitPython, Maker Melissa, big shout out to her for doing some of this effort. The Adafruit Blinker library. Blinker is a library that Adafruit maintain. It has a couple of purposes. One of them is to make CircuitPython run on SBC and Singapore computers. The other part is that it's also a compatibility layer for MicroPython. So unfortunately, it's sort of fallen by the wayside. But Melissa's taking the initiative to update it. So there's a new tutorial that talks about how you can get CircuitPython libraries running under MicroPython using this compatibility layer. So Blinker kind of provides all of the modules that CircuitPython expects, but then routes it through the MicroPython side. And there's pretty good coverage for like SPI, I2C, GPIOs. Some things don't work so well, like the NeoPixel driving, that kind of thing. But in general, there's a lot of Adafruit libraries. There's 310 libraries in their bundle now. A lot of them we now have access to if you want to use them as a quick way to try them out. It's quite helpful. Thanks to Maker Melissa. Empty Remote, Damien will talk about, but it is in PyPI. You can go check it out. I'll let him talk more about that. Taylor Tuesday, I don't know if you wanted to mention this. Yeah, so I just wanted to share it. Triage Tuesday, yeah. So Jim and Damien for the last month, they've been trying to tackle PRs. That's the focus of the day. So I know there's been a lot of complaints about PRs not being integrated as quickly as we'd like. That's just because Damien and Jim are snowed under with everything, but we're trying to make time now on Tuesdays to really tackle some of those PRs. Some of them have been open for quite a while. So
the aim is to get 4 requests down to 0.
It's a big aim. There's how many?
And keep it down.
Yeah.
No, I think we have to put out the so big very close to that.
Yeah. Jim was very excited a couple of weeks ago when he got through 23 or something in a day.
I think like a few days ago, like 5.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're trying to be diligent to go through each product. Close, merge, or
It's closed forever. It has to be. Yeah. So I thought that was worthwhile sharing, and I guess we're doing a lot of work there. So that's great. OpenMV, I think I mentioned the Pure Thermal a month or two ago, but it's now available on group kits. It is $289, which is an expensive board, but it's pretty potent. It's an H7 at 480 meg, 32 mega flash, 64 mega RAM. I'm just going to go straight to the screenshots because they look cool. We've got a ton of stuff sitting on this board. Fantastic MicroPython support with all of their image processing libraries that OpenMV have been working on for some time now. So yeah, if this is the kind of thing that's of interest to you, it's super impressive, really. And following up from that, recently they've put a lot of effort into releasing new firmware for their entire range, but it will also be for the pure thermal. And in particular, they've spent a lot of time on performance, so buffering video, and buffering video so that it can be analyzed as it goes through the buffer, and a lot of DMA improvements. Also some Wi-Fi debug support. They have this IDE that they provide. Now you can connect it to any of their devices that have Wi-Fi and control it over Wi-Fi. It doesn't have to have a serial connection. That's great. M5 Stack, I mentioned last month, they've been pretty busy, been crazy busy. The first one is the Unit V2, which is not a MicroPython device, but I thought I'd mention it anyway just because it was quite interesting. It's a small little camera, same form factor as they've had before. I can show you one that I've got that's not this one, but this thing's running Linux now. So it's designed to do AI processing, but it's a dual Cortex A7, pretty grunty for the size of these things. And yeah, they're about that big. That's not one of them, but they're about that big. And for $75 US, it's pretty compelling. It's caused quite a stir online. In their other peripherals for their other systems, they have the ODrive, which is a 3-phase servo controller, which also has an encoder as well, so it's really accurate for like robot motor control. These things are $43, but they're it's a pretty good price for that kind of device. And then they've got the RF stuff, 433 meg editions, LoRaWAN editions, and Zigbee editions for various parts of their for the core modules, those rectangular ones, or for the smaller stuff where you connect them over a short cable. And finally, they've got a really small, cheap camera. They've had a few of these cameras they've been releasing over the years. This one's aimed to be really cheap, so it's $7.50, ESP32, Wi-Fi connected, 2 megapixel camera. Hard to beat for the price. Oh, sorry, last one, my favorite. They got cushions now as well. So you can buy cushions that are in the shape of their devices. So I thought that was cute. We should probably buy one for the Hackspace here. This is really cool. DJI make a whole bunch of drones. This is their Rotomaster TT. I can't remember what it stands for. But it's $240 US. Runs an ESP32 it's got, and they're actually supporting MicroPython on it. So it's mainly aimed at the educational sector. And in the picture on the bottom here, you can sort of see there's actually an LED matrix on this thing that you plug into the top of it. And so you can get that to scroll basic sort of patterns and stuff. I thought that was really kind of cool. Yeah, I hadn't stumbled across that really. Pico Snake. So this was someone's effort, it was on a Hack Day article, to make an implementation of Snake. But as he was building it, he thought, hang on, why doesn't the snake's tail wiggle as it goes along? And so he's implemented this, and it's all in MicroPython. So it looks better when there's a moving image, but as you move the snake around, the tail wiggles along. And he actually, the article is really interesting to read through because he sort of talks about the trials and tribulations of having to get that to work. And this is an attempt at a MicroPython disassembler. I also hadn't heard about this, kind of came out of left field. Yeah, it looks like it's got a half chance of getting the disassembly correct. It's not perfect. It's really hard to do a perfect job of disassembling back to Python, but yeah, it's great. Peter Hinch has updated or been progressively updating his NanoGui library. These are some of the things you can do with it, charts and various widgets. But it was nice because he's got one of the support for the TT Go, which is this little guy, about $20 with a little color display on it, an ESP32. So he's now got full support for that. And just a shout out to Peter because he's just been chipping away making that library work everywhere. So Yeah, it's really good. This one's a bit hard to see, but menus for MicroPython was a simple library to. It was designed to have rotating menus for a rotary encoder, so you can list in a pretty simple way. You can list a whole bunch of options and have like a little widget to show which one's highlighted. And the rotary encoder binds to it so that it animates it as it goes through. It's quite neat. Docker images with MicroPython. I was actually going to put this together, and I'm glad someone else, Mitch Curry, has already done it. You can now go grab a Docker image which has the Unix port of MicroPython all built and ready to go. So you can see down the bottom here. You go Docker run with Mitchell's hub account, and you'll just get MicroPython running. Don't have to install anything except for Docker. It also works with tags, and so he's published all the versions from 1.9.3 to 1.15. I can show you how to use that later tonight if you like. But fantastic way to get moving for if you want to like isolate your test environment and push things into the MicroPython Unix variant. Super easy to do. So yeah, really good. It's also really good for testing between versions of the Unix port. So if you want to see if it works on 1.14 versus 1.15, see if there's any problems, it makes it trivial to do that. Python Online, I just thought to mention we've got the Python conference in Australia. It's being held online this year, damn you COVID. But the call for proposals is open now, so if you're interested in giving a talk, I encourage you to do so. MicroPython and Yocto. Someone's also put together the rules to build, again, the Unix version of MicroPython for Yoctos. This is for OpenMV, if you're more familiar with that name. If you've got like a Linux installed for a particular device, this will be of use to you, so you can easily integrate MicroPython into your OpenMV system. Kevin McAleer, I hadn't heard of Kevin, and then he was just sort of everywhere. He's released a whole bunch of videos. He's really interested in robotics, but he seems to have gotten interested in MicroPython, particularly with the Raspberry Pi Pico. He's talking about like rotary encoders, various environments, how to control things, sensors and motors for robots. I stumbled on him because he'd also used that rotary encoder menu system, so he talks his way through how to use that. And he has a lot of videos. It just keeps going on. You can just keep scrolling through that. For those that haven't seen this, Winterbloom's a company that is run by Thea Stargirl Flowers. She makes some really cool audio devices, like for sequences and stuff. She also helps maintain CircuitPython, and so her devices often use CircuitPython. But the article I point you towards is she wrote up how she runs her company, like what technologies she uses, what compilers, what kind of everything. And I thought it was just pretty interesting for this audience. Probably be a lot of crossovers, the kind of tools you might want to use. She wrote up really clearly, and gave justifications to why she'd chosen one tool over another. And that is about all I had for you. There's a few more left over that I couldn't talk about, but I'll make sure they come in next month. That's it. Hopefully you guys online could hear some of that.